Hello and welcome to Lacey Walker Art. Today we're going to be making these fun scattered pattern metal teardrop earrings. The supplies you're going to need are a rubber pad. This is optional, but it's going to reduce the noise. A steel block. This is what allows you to stamp it. Some sheet metal. I recommend using copper, brass, or aluminum, something that's going to be soft enough to be stamped into. A metal stamp. I'm using a unicorn. A file. Some shears. I typically find I like some of the gardening shears to cut the metal with because they don't have the serrations. Some jewelry pliers. A metal hole punch. A template. I always start by making my templates out of paper so that I can test them. 2 ear wires that match the color of your metal. A hammer. A paper towel. And some acetone or rubbing alcohol to remove Sharpie marks. Not pictures of Sharpie. And some imprint paint. Alright, let's get started. The first thing you want to do is make sure that your metal is flat and you're going to place it on top of your steel block. Then what I do to make this scattered pattern is I select a direction in which the first stamps are going to be, and because I don't want this pattern to be regular or kind of repeating, I just kind of randomly place them all along in that same direction. When I hit the metal stamp, it's important to go down once straight on it, and then I do kind of a rocking motion with it. You'll see here after my first pass. Because I want these to be all different directions, I rotate the metal by about 45 degrees each time, and I keep the stamp the same direction to me to limit my own confusion as to which way the stamps are going to be. You'll see there's a little difference there. And again, I rotate again. I repeat this until I have completed kind of an entire rotation of the metal, as well as that I think that there's good coverage. Once I've repeated that random pattern in all directions, I go in and I take a look at where I'm missing and I have gaps and I need to fill those in, and I fill those in just kind of as I see fit. The next step is to go ahead and trace out the shape you're going to be cutting. This again is some paper that I have cut the shape out of. I tested it, looked at it in the mirror to make sure it was the right size and shape that I wanted for my earrings, and I just trace it with a Sharpie. I'm using a watercolor paper. You probably want something a little thicker than printer paper in order to do this. Then I take the shears and I cut roughly around them. I do try to preserve as much of the remaining pattern as possible, so not just cut a huge area around it, because I do want to make a few more pairs of these with the remaining part of that pattern that I stamped. And here is the real trick, is when you are cutting metal, you want to use a sharp shear, and then if I'm trying to do a curve, I move both my hand and the scissors simultaneously to create kind of a smooth edge. You'll see that right there. And again, notice how much my holding hand actually ends up moving in order to make it so that it's a smoother cut. Repeat that for the other side. Next, we're going to want to make sure we can actually dangle these from your ears. So I start by marking where I want that top hole with a Sharpie, and then I use my metal hole punches, and I line it up directly with the mark I've made, and punch. Now you've got a hole. Repeat for the other side. While the cuts I made are pretty smooth, I do like to make sure that I have smoothed out all of the edges. I don't want anything sharp. If there's any kind of shards or pointy parts on it, I go ahead and file those off. And finally, I straighten out the earrings. I do this by testing and tapping on them to see if they are laying flat, and just kind of working them with my fingers or a pair of pliers depending on the metal. In order to remove the Sharpie, you can take some acetone or just some rubbing alcohol and wipe off the edges where that Sharpie is. It comes right off. The second to last step you're going to want to do is to push the imprint paint into the stamps that you've made. You're going to need to learn a little bit about how to work with this paint depending on your metal and how deep the stamps are that you've made. With the ones I'm doing, all I do is I put a dab of this on a piece of paper towel, and then I push it in and rub it around the entirety of the design. I only need to wait on this one until basically I can get a clean piece of paper towel to then wipe it off. But some metals, textures, or stamps do require you to wait a little bit longer before you go ahead and wipe them off to make sure it stays within the imprints that you've made. Wipe until you're happy with how clean they are. The final step is to attach the ear wires. I do this by pulling them open just enough to where I'm going to be able to slide the metal into it. Make sure that it's facing the correct way, and then I just squeeze it closed. Repeat for the other side. And there you go. You have this really fun pair of scattered pattern earrings. In my case, they have unicorns on them. I also make them with hearts and earrings and different things. You can really make them to how you want, but I find that the teardrop and the scattered pattern make them just really fun earrings to wear. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to watch more videos like this, please subscribe.